last week I pruned this pineapple sage bush back really hard for the last video. And then it did what it always does. It grew back fast and thick. The vigor is real. This bush is actually going to come out for good, but not before it gives me a few more plants first. Today we're going to be taking cuttings and doing some vegetative propagation off of a bunch of things I have that will propagate vegetatively. And every one of these things here had to start somewhere, and that was usually a nursery. Once. But you'll only pay for that once if you can propagate it vegetatively. After that, it's on you to multiply it. A cutting, a division, an offset that would have gotten thrown out anyway. That's what today is. If you haven't watched the pineapple sage pruning video that I did yet, I encourage you to go watch it. We'll throw a link up here and in the description. But some important things to note about pineapple sage is that it reads as a ornamental with these bright red flowers, not the vegetable patch that it does well to hide, but it does produce an herb that's really delicious. I like to make a marinade out of it for my chicken. But even more importantly, it's a big pollinator attractor, particularly for the fall. Brings in a lot of hummingbirds. So it does double duty on that nature-based solutions. And it roots really, really easily from cuttings. A lot of times, if you take a branch, it might even already have some roots on it. It'll root in water, but today we're going to place it in some soil. The technique here is simple. We're just using a dibbler to make a hole, putting some rooting hormone on the cutting. We trim the leaves so that it doesn't lose too much moisture. Our next thing that we're going to propagate is some African blue basil. If you thought that pineapple sage rooted easily, well, African blue basil just has one thing to say, and that's hold my beer. Vegetative propagation is actually really important for African blue basil because it's a sterile hybrid. It doesn't make seeds. So if you want more, the only way to get more is to vegetatively propagate it. A lot of the things that we're propagating today are going into the Epic 4-cell seed trays. The 4 cells, they're deep enough for real root development, and they also auto prune once the root hits air. That's what those slits on the side are for. And this matters more on some of these than others. And African blue basil, well, this is where the root pruning earns its keep. That basil roots fast, and it's one of the most likely to circle if you don't stop it. A quick note on these Epic gardening 4-cell trays. I've used these for years, well before I had this channel. Only recently did we get approved as an affiliate. So there's an affiliate link in the description if you'd like to get them. Like I said, they're great, and I've been using them for years before, and it doesn't cost you anything to use the link. One thing that a lot of these varieties that we're propagating have in common is vigorous growth. And this next one, Cranberry Hibiscus, well, I was trying to keep this as a nice rounded shrub, but it has shot up some shoots fast that are making it look a little scraggly. So we're going to prune it for shape, but we're going to take these cuttings, we're going to go propagate them. One thing that I think is important to mention about a lot of these varieties, and maybe some other plants that you have in your area, is that a lot of these are kind of marginal if you get a frost or freeze. So that vigorous growth helps them, but it can hurt them in colder weather. And so I like to take all these cuttings while the growth is explosive in the late summer. Reduce some of the vigor, but also propagate more plants that you can keep in containers through the winter. That way, if you do happen to lose any of these in a frost or a freeze, you've got plenty extra to just pop in the ground come the spring once you know you're clear of your last frost. This Cranberry Hibiscus, it's got the burgundy foliage that really reads as a structural color shrub. It can really look great in a mixed bed. It doesn't look like a crop, but the edible leaves and the flowers, if you get them, they're cranberry-like. They add a great pop to a salad. I think these are my favorite salad green, to be honest. I wouldn't make a salad exclusively with them, but I don't make a salad at home that doesn't contain them anymore. And if you do have some Okinawa spinach, the two pair together phenomenally, and I really suggest you give it a try. These are another dead simple one to propagate. You take the foliage off the lower nodes, get some rooting hormone on the bottom and on those lower nodes, get good coverage in the soil. You got to, get a good 2 or 3 nodes buried at least. Stick it in there, make sure that soil is pressed up around it, and it's good to go. It'll root. Speaking of Okinawa spinach, we're going to propagate some of that too. This little purple-backed foliage ground cover, it looks like an ornamental ground cover. The duality of those two colors is amazing, but the look is beat out even by the taste of this edible green. This is a perfect aesthetic edible blend. It's got a low spreading habit that fills beds without looking like production growing, but it's not as vigorous as some of the others. And in fact, I find the best way to encourage its vigor is to prune it and to propagate it. I almost propagate more than I eat because taking cuttings multiplies it faster than just letting it grow on its own. Once again, it's a simple snip, remove any lower leaves that you may or may not have, dip in some rooting hormone and stick in the ground. I will warn with this one, you got to make sure to keep the soil moist until it's rooted. That goes with any of these, but in particular with this one, it will dry up and die if the soil dries. Finally, we're going to propagate some mint. This is not nursery mint. This is a landrace of my own making, and it genuinely cannot be bought. Not because it's rare, but just because it's adapted to this specific garden. If you haven't seen the mint julep video on GM Gourmet, go check it out. There's a link. But the gist is that I grew 3 mints together: mint julep, mojito, and Kentucky kernel. And over the years of these growing all together, reseeding all together, they've become their own thing. And it's the perfect cocktail mint. But it lives nowhere else, so I need to make sure that I always have some on hand. The propagation technique for mint is simple. By now, you know the routine. Make sure to keep it watered while all these root. That's the only thing that matters for the next couple of weeks. None of this cost anything today. Some of it, like the mint, took years, and that's the whole idea. Pick things that don't ask you to start over every year. If you want the short list of what's actually worth planting first, that's what the book walks through. Link below.